listen in as Bella Goth reads the chapters of her expose titled Trapped, a one-woman story of horrors. She recounts the numerous things she experienced in her 04 Strangerville abduction, only on Sim TV.
Since my expose detailing my experiences during my Strangerville abduction in 2004 was published to the world, I have received hundreds of letters in regard to it. The edition containing my story long since ran out, and I have been prevailed upon to allow it to be published in book form to satisfy the hundreds who are yet asking for copies. I am happy to be able to state that as a result of my expose and the exposures consequent thereon, the Strangerville government has since been investigated and successfully shut down. So I have at least the satisfaction of knowing that the other poor unfortunates who succumb to the terrors of the organization can also receive the justice they deserve. My name is Bella Goth, and this is Trapped, a one-woman story of horrors. Chapter 1, A Delicate Mission. On the 14th of September, I sat poised at my computer, attempting to conjure up something. A short story, a town gossip column, something worth writing about. I thought about investigating my neighbors and their top secret cult the town seems so in arms about. I could barely get a single word in on the page. This was no writer's block. This was a writer's plague. At the time, I was employed by Emerald Landgrab's Willow Creek Publishing, and knowing the Landgrabs, the only god they bow to is the green god. Money, greed. The Willow Creek establishment wasn't bringing in enough money for the company. There were hardly any articles coming out. Good articles, that is. The Landgrabs got hungry. They threatened to cut us off if we didn't have a good story on their desk the following week. I started to give up until I finally found something. Back in 04, Sim Nation suffered one of the greatest mass hysteria of all time. The 6am panic. There would be tales of life roaming the planet right next to Earth. 6am. People would say there were even sightings of these life forces roaming around the towns, most notably Strangerville, and that the government was covering it all up. My editor knew what I was thinking. He told me that I'd be stupid to go down to Strangerville and hassle the government, that a small town woman would be a laughingstock, that I should just stick to the rehearsed ghost stories of Willow Creek. I told him point blank, no. No one wants to keep reading about the same old voodoo and vampire history, but this was a story I was willing to chase, and I was going to do anything to get that story. Chapter 2, Preparing for the Ordeal. At around 10:15 p.m. on that cold September day, I got a call from an old friend. This friend knew I was investigating this mystery and had invited me over to use a telescope on his roof so that I could investigate the sky. Apparently, my supernatural call to action rallied the whole town. Once I was at his house, we had drinks, and he showed me his collection of some supposed alien artifacts he found. I was suspicious, not because I thought the artifacts were fake, but because I knew they weren't. I wondered what they were doing in this house. This friend didn't find them, he stole them, and he stole them from the Strangerville research facility. I wasn't sure what he was doing with these stolen artifacts, and I didn't question it. I was too busy trying to chase this story. He led me to his roof, and there was a small dark telescope. I used it. However, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, just the autumnous darkness of the lush Willow Creek skies and that creepy lab located in the heart of Strangerville. I could see a few workers bringing in and out the carts and supplies. Nothing worth writing about. After a while, though, there was a bright green light upon the sky, so bright that if you made direct eye contact with it, you'd burn your eyes clean out. The next thing I knew, I see two figures inside the light. Two women. They looked as if they were hurtling right towards me. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. At that moment, I was frozen. The next thing I know, I awoke in a testing chamber. Chapter 3. In the temporary home. White. All I could see was white. My hands were bound by non-metal-like bars, my feet by the same. Cold. All I could feel was cold. The gray metal slab, which served as my testing bed, was just as uncomfortable as you may imagine. I looked up, and there was this bright white light bulb shining down on me. After a while, I heard talking. This wasn't Simlish. I couldn't describe what language was even if I tried, but it was not that of any Sim. I went quiet for a beat. Then I heard footsteps. Loud footsteps. Someone, or rather, something, approached my slab. I couldn't make out their face, but they started conducting tests, sticking needles in my arm. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. All I could do was sit there and stare up at that bright white light while my body was being violated upon. Around every 5 or so hours, they let us out of our rooms. I, along with 8 other test subjects, were instructed to go to a white room with a rainbow strip called the common room. We were forced to socialize and play with the toys that were given to us. We had only 1 meal a day, dinner. Each day, dinner was served to us near bedtime. The food consisted of small packets containing our meal with every nutrient. My favorite were the gumbo packets, partly due to the Southern Willow Creek appetite in me. Every 2 days, we had our checkups, which consisted of being pumped with different fluids and drugs. I started to give up, losing hope that I may never see my family again, until one day, I was in the common room when I overheard a conversation. By that point, I had been at that facility for a month, so I picked up on a few bits of the language. These beings were talking to someone. I had to play the fact that I was listening off, but I just couldn't stop myself. There were 2 voices in particular which plagued my mind. They sounded too familiar. The voices made themselves known and entered the common room. And then at that moment, I saw it all. These voices belonged to the 2 figures that I last saw before I was taken. Nina and Dina Caliente. Not only were these 2 in on this, but they were one of these extraterrestrials themselves. Chapter 4. The Escape. I had decided at that moment I could not give up, not for myself, and most certainly not for my family. I had to escape. One day, Nina Caliente entered my room and taunted my weakness and my misfortune.
"You're never gonna get out of here,"
she said. I bribed her to let me out, tried to convince her that I'd leave her out of the story when and if I publish it. We grew up in the same town and went to school together. I thought that I could get through to her. After all, she was the timid sister of the 2. It didn't work. She shut the bars to my room and left me. I did not give up an ounce of hope, though. The next day, a friend I had made at the facility was telling me about how there was a weekly waste burning, that the waste goes into the outside before being set on fire. She suggested that we both sneak our way into the staff wing and hide out inside the garbage. A cautious me asked her, "What if we get burned?" She quickly reminded me that the fire is set on 10-minute timers, and that we had exactly 10 minutes to escape. Apparently, she had been planning this for nearly 2 months. The plan was bananas, even for me, but I wanted out of this place. A week later, we were ready for the escape. After dinner, it was lights out. I asked one of the guards if it'd be possible for me to go to the bathroom, and there I met up with my friend. They surprisingly weren't doing bed checks that night, which only made our plans so much easier. My friend led me down the hall before I quickly stopped myself. I had this unnatural feeling in my stomach. "What about the others?" I asked her, to which she replied, "You're gonna get this place shut down, aren't you? We can't bring all of these people with us. We'll get caught." "They'll be free soon," she reminded me. I obliged, and we headed toward the garbage. There we hid out for what seemed to be 30 minutes, until I felt a tumble. The garbage can that we were in began to move, making loud squeaking noises as it did so. I took a peek outside the trash and saw the face of a man, the janitor. He took us to the garbage drop-off and dumped us inside. Tick, tick. The timer shut on. That was our 10 minutes. We waited for the janitor to exit, and then we made a run for it. Up ahead a door. No ordinary door. This was the door to my freedom. Once we finally reached the door, we were greeted by a strange being. He stopped us. We ran and he caught up to my friend. She screamed at me and told me to hurry and get out of that place, to blow the roofs off the government's head. All I could do was run. I ran and ran, getting lost inside that building. Dina and Nina caught up to me and poked me with a needle. My vision went blurry. I passed out. Next thing I know, I wake up naked in the middle of the desert in Strangerville with no retention of memory. Chapter 5. Civilization. I don't remember much about wandering through the desert. That is still very much a distant memory of mine. The only thing I could see were missing posters of myself. I thought I was in a dream. Oh, how much I wished it was a dream. People say that I was spotted around various towns across the Strangerville border, such as Del Sol and Oasis. Rambling on, my mind in a daze. One night, I guess I was walking through town in nothing but a bra, when a cheap old convertible stopped in front of me. All I could see were the headlights of this vehicle in an otherwise dark desert. 2 figures stepped out from the car. I thought that the Caliente sisters found me, but no. These figures were the beginning of my freedom. They were a couple, a husband and wife, dressed like your typical blue-neck desert dwellers. The wife looked like the husband and yelled out, "That's her! That's Bella Goth!" They then offered me a ride and brought me to their home. Their house was something I'd never forget. It smelled of lavender and looked as if it came out of a Margot Phillips flick. The couple sat me down and attempted to communicate with me. At that point, I was either rambling, speaking in an unidentifiable language, or mute the whole time. They offered me coffee, tried to do everything in their power to make it known that I was safe, but I couldn't trust anyone. I wasn't even sure why I agreed to go to their house. Deep down, maybe I knew I could trust them, and I could. Over the course of 3 days, the couple performed various hypnosis on me. Some worked, some failed. It finally reached a point where I could remember my own name and occupation. The couple reminded me that I was gone for nearly 3 months, and that the whole world was on an active search for me. There were billboards with the words, "What happened to Bella Goth?" plastered everywhere, newspapers detailing my disappearance. I couldn't believe it. I became a bold-faced mystery and sensation overnight. It was at that moment I realized who exactly this couple were. Wanda and Edward Jones, the world-renowned paranormal investigators. They exclaimed that they were also investigating my disappearance. They were sure that supernatural elements were involved. In fact, everyone had their own theories, but I knew something that no one else did. Aliens existed and the government was definitely covering it up, and that the Caliente sisters were involved. I told this couple that I had to go, to which they told me that it wasn't safe just yet. Nobody knew that I was even alive at that point, just that there had been sightings of me, and that I should keep it a secret until I had leverage. I reminded them of what I went through in that place and who were involved. The couple looked at me like I was crazy and said that he was the mastermind behind it all. He who? I asked. Don Lothario, they said. It was a moment like no other. My heart sank. I could actually feel it dropping inside my chest. I didn't believe them. It couldn't. Don was my friend, and he actively supported me with my investigation, I argued. But that's just it, Wanda said. He actively helped and aided you with your investigation, and that struck me like a match. I finally came to my senses. I realized that this all went back to Don Lothario. The Caliente siblings were up on that roof the exact moment I was led up there to use the telescope. The couple explained that Don actually turned himself in a month prior, feeling the guilt of thinking I had died. He confessed and pleaded guilty to first-degree kidnapping, while the Calientes got out scot-free. Turns out, the Strangerville government hated that I was getting too close to busting the doors to their lives wide open, so they used my old friend, Don Lothario's likeness to me to take care of me. The Strangerville government paid Don 2 million simoleons up front to do whatever it takes to keep me quiet. Moreover, the Caliente sisters offered him the alien artifacts he showed me as gratitude. This was it. This was my story. Chapter 6. Madness Ends. After a few weeks, the Jonases said that it was safe enough for me to go back into the world, back to civilization. And boy, was I ready. It was the beginning of December and the nation was getting ready for Winterfest. During the holidays, this was the only time our country is united, respectful, and in a loving mood. I was not about to ruin the spirit, so I waited. I first went home and greeted my family, whom I haven't seen in months. Little Alex started growing up in my absence, it seems. Cassie always hides her emotions, but it doesn't take a human expert to realize that she missed me terribly, and I too missed her. Mortimer almost dropped to his knees when he saw me. When the news broke that I was alive and in the care of my family, there were dozens of reporters to my door day to day, insisting on me to talk on what I saw and heard, but I didn't speak to anyone. I barely left the house since the ordeal. There began to be rumors that I was clowned and that I wasn't the real Bella. I could feel the Strangerville government getting scared, anxious of the fact that I did retain my memory, and that I did, in fact, have much to say. It wasn't until March 5th, 2005 when I finally opened the doors to the public and published the expose that I've been working on for months. There was a public press conference held in Newcrest with many in attending listening to what I had to say. I spoke to the conditions in which I was forced to endure, the cover-ups, as well as the numerous murders that took place while I was locked up. On July 5th, the day after Independence Day, the local government was shut down, with their files seized by the feds. It wouldn't be too soon after when top-secret files leaked claiming the existence of aliens and mermaids mainly inhabiting the beaches of Ceylon. What else was out there, I thought? That was a story for another day. After the Strangerville government shut down, it left only a few officials in town, the operations of the military, and the abandoned secret lab. The end. It is 2010, and since the Strangerville exposure, I have sold over 2 million copies of Trapped. I'd like to thank you all, those who supported me, my friends and family, and even my enemies. I truly wouldn't have and couldn't have done this without you all. I wagered enough money to quit the land grabs and founded my own company, Bachelor's Publishing, on the outskirts of Newcrest. My name is Bella Goth, and thanks for listening and/or reading Trapped, a one-woman story of horrors.